All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to a Club PF and I guess, non-Club PF monthly event. These are events that I personally look forward to every month, learning from experts that are in the field. And Mark and I come from an event background. So when Julius agreed to do this, it was someone that, Mark and we've known for a while, and I'll let him kind of give his own introduction. But we've been in similar types of companies throughout our careers, and we both, I look to Julius for a lot of information when it comes to events, and he's been nothing but supportive to me as well as Mark. So, Julius, yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself. And one more thing I wanted to tackle before we get into that. We want to make this conversational. Again, Julius is able to answer questions. If you have questions, drop them in the chat. We'll tackle them throughout the entire presentation. But Julius, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And also my personal welcome to the Bold Push Plus subscribers, since this is going to be recorded also for my audience. At Bold Push, we are, a media and consulting company for the events industry. So we're very vertical on events. And we do everything from go-to-market to content strategy for event tech companies, agencies, large Fortune 500 events that kind of need help with their marketing, registration, whatever it's going on. I've been in media for almost 20 years now for the events industry. I've done a ton of research and analysis around a website called EventMB, where we used to do, I'm an OG creator as a blogger, 2007. I sold that business in 2019 to Skift, which by the way is having their Skift forum right now in New York. It's a large travel media company. And later I moved to the dark side, as they say. I started working client side on SwapCard as head of engagement, later as VP of marketing for Hopin. So I've seen a lot in my life, I can say. But obviously been following you guys for a long time. I'm such a privilege to be with you. Mark, I feel you've initiated, the event-led sort of concept when obviously as CMO at AirMeet. I think you're single-handedly responsible for this. So thank you so much for putting sort of together. So for starting, I would say was the mixing of events and marketing, which is, to be honest, extending the capability, life cycle, business model of events per se, which has always been niched into, the hospitality industry evolution. But right now you give it a new life, I feel, by connecting the dots, and this convergence of MarTech and event tech is coming together. I just talked about it on LinkedIn this morning. Our investors are super excited about that. Our event tech companies are pivoting and transitioning to become more sophisticated on the marketing side, and our marketing tech companies are looking at event tech companies to complement. So almost like what happened with social media in 2010, when you have HubSpot buying, integrating social media capabilities. We're seeing that in events right now. So this is further confirmation of what you started, Mark, and thanks so much for having me here.
I appreciate the kind words, Julius. No, and to me, this conversation is two things. Events, to your point, have always been about the art side of the brain, right? I always get this confused. I think that's more like the left side of the brain, or is it the right side? Which one's the more like?
Don't ask me. I'm confused online with life. It's probably the left, I would say.
and then what we've tried to do, and now with everyone kind of getting on board with this idea of event-led growth, it's like bringing in the data side. Because an event's always been about the people, the connection, the experience. No one probably knows that better than you. You've been in the space for so long. But then, wait a minute. Now through technology, there's so much amazing data that you can use for both a business standpoint, but also an attendee, customer point of view standpoint. And it was just kind of being missed for some reason. So I'm excited to talk about both things today. And events to me are one of the most important ways to get people to truly remember something, remember, and then to actually go from remembering to understanding to mastering something. Events are so important because events are about, fundamentally, to me, Julius, and what do you think? Conversations, isn't that the essence of a really good event, like conversation and connection?
I mean, it is, and we live in a moment where, the online context is so much, right? We get to know each other online so much. But then again and again, when we meet in person, that type of connection is superior to any other type of connection in terms of the impact that it has. So it's something that we perceived, I would say, for a long time. But now research is backing that up. So data is backing that up. So that's the interesting point, right? It's like, a gut feeling, serendipity. I've never been quite sold on that concept of like serendipity, and during the pandemic, how we miss serendipity during virtual events. It's like, that to me, when you say serendipity, it's almost chance. I don't believe in chance of like, I believe in a business environment. We have to make business decisions and like be operational in terms of what we do. I want to show you something here, other than ball push, whatever. We did the pitch. But this is like interesting research that Visible put out just like last month. So I invite you to check out that research. Marketers, like, this has been consistent, by the way. The problem is that it's been expensive, right? Events are expensive. They tend to be expensive compared to other online channels. Like, that's changing as well. That's probably what we're inheriting from the pandemic experience, where virtual events, like, even if they're going down, some things have changed forever. Like, we were talking about asynchronous consumption of this live event, for example, how it's going to be probably more important. That's a new event format per se. That's extending the life cycle. And so virtual events do play a role in sort of bringing down the costs, creating more touch points, and offering a lot. But also look at this stat here. I'm very excited about this. This is Splash as part of GTM Partners, which I'm sure you know very well. What they're doing on event led is very interesting, how they're putting together some data that actually makes a ton of sense. Like 3 times the pipeline, like, from events compared to other channels. 10 times the ROI of in attendees versus non-attendees for your customers. Like, this is a big deal. Like, I was preparing my interview to Jason Lemkin, the founder of SaaStr, and I was listening to a podcast, and he was saying anecdotally how in tech, 40% of the pipeline sometimes is that big event that is happening. I mean, we have IMEX coming up for the events industry in a couple of weeks, in a few weeks, October 16. And, I can tell it's going to be 40, if not more, of the pipeline of the event companies that are going to be there. This is like the event you attend. So I'm going to pause there and let you, if you have any comments about this, or if not, I can move on to the next slides.
I think it's just now about how to do it across the customer journey in an integrated, unified way. So there are different types of events experiences that are both online and in person that match to where the business is from a maturity standpoint, right? Because if you're a small business, you're not going to try to pull off something like Inbound Dreamforce, SaaStr's event. But you can still actually partner with that event in a variety of different ways as a way to either create brand awareness, get to pipeline, accelerate pipeline, educate customers, strengthen customer relationships. So it's all about designing an event strategy that is both pre-sale and post-sale. And don't think of just pipeline as new business pipeline either. We saw a tremendous amount of expansion pipeline come from events as well.
Absolutely. I just recently closed double-digit thousands of dollars of business from existing clients just by attending an event. Obviously, what it means is sometimes that you got to have a plan when it gets to events. Like, you don't have to be carried out on the partying side, on just showing up and do things. We'll talk about that as well. But like the strategic approach, this event is about strategy. So I want to share that with you. Some macro factors here that I want to share with you. AI, I think, like, whenever I say this on LinkedIn, this resonates so much with my audience. LinkedIn is becoming my sort of go-to feedback for trends and whatever, is going on. We got, almost 6 million views in the last year on my content. So I got so many data points in terms of like what event planners like. Whenever I say this resonates so much. I think, so my theory here, my thesis, what I said yesterday to investment bankers while at a meeting, I said, who's going to download a 50-page white paper in 6 months' time? Like, who's got the time for that in the AI world? First, for two reasons. First, I can ask AI for better answers, really literally, instead of like reading through, a Bible of whatever you put together. Secondly, who tells me that's authentic information that you source instead of like, some ChatGPT generated sort of white paper that literally wastes my time. And so events become the most human, sort of personable way of marketing products and in general. I would say it's the channel that we trust. And like, you cannot fake this. Even this, like probably you will be able to fake this. You will have an AI generated presenter in virtual events, but like in live events, like you see the person. That's where, can I curse here? That's when you're like, when you cut the BS, okay, I'm gonna censor that a little bit. You cut the BS. And like, if you're faking it with ChatGPT online, you cannot fake it offline. Like, they get a feel, you get a feeling from a brand. And so we see that a lot of the pipeline may start online, but actually closes at events. Like, that's where things happen for the most cases. I'm noticing that again and again. Obviously, there's stuff like, the cookieless future and so first party data, I don't have to tell you that, like how important that is in that mentality, how owning that data of like people that register at your virtual events, in-person events, like the quality of that data, like you start having like so many data points, like people that respond to polls, people that download a brochure. So, you start having like full data sets. And like, if you're good with it, like, the possibilities are endless. Like if you have a data-driven mentality. So I'm very excited about that. And I want to share it with you. I'm going to pause here to see if there's any comments.
Yeah, any questions, folks? Like just come off mute or put in the chat. But like for me, events are a center of gravity now. Most B2B marketers have not thought about an event as a center of gravity because it is content, it is conversations, it's connection. So if you really think through, to your point, Julius, about a plan, and for me, I made the mistake early on in my career where I didn't do enough what I would call briefs for content, briefs for events, briefs for product launches. But if you build a brief and hone in on the who, the why, the what, and the how, the where and the when, of course, you need to know the where and the when, but like those four things to start with, and you really dig into how you want to design the overall event and what you want to have happen before, during, and after the event, you can get so much of that 1 + 1 = 3 type of magic.
Oh my God, I have a full slide about that. I have my 7 Ps. I want to take you through the 7 Ps very quickly. I mean, the slides, you're going to be able to download and double click on those if you want to. But like, I want to take you through that process, like what it means today. Another word about own data, by the way, we submit data voluntarily to attend events. There's a FOMO component that is like comparable probably to obtain a PDF online right now at a very basis, like of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. There's obtaining a PDF, and then there's like, RSVPing for an event. So I feel that this dynamic is very unique to events. Like only when like you want to attend, not only you're giving your data, you're paying. You're like, you think about user conferences, sometimes you're paying like $1,000 to be there, to give your data to someone else. Like that's unprecedented in marketing. If you think about it, like what are you going to pay for it? Like not all events are the same. Some events, like obviously you're comped or you're actually expensed to be there. But like, it's interesting how, if you think about the biggest event companies right now, these are 3 people I want to introduce you to. Like this is Doug Emsley. This is the CEO of Tarsus, a huge media/events company that got acquired by Informa for $1 billion. And he said they acquired us for our data, not for our events, for our data. Just let that sink in. Paul Miller, CEO of Questex, hundreds of millions of revenue. They launched the show in 6 months because of data. The guy on the right hand side, Anil Agarwal, the founder of Money 2020, Shop Talk, and Healthy, is that exits for $800 million. He said events are the easiest market to get into. There's no barriers. Like literally so easy to make anything better if you use the data right. Like, if you think about it, like bad coffee, conversations you don't want to hear, pitches from sponsors, so easy to do better than that. So easy, like just think about it. Like what can you do about that? So I'm gonna skip through the slides very quickly. So I feel like that's what makes events special. Like the co-creation, the high engagement, the higher sales impact. Sometimes where you're listening to a session, even if you're looking at your phone while a speaker is going on with their keynote, like you're literally like thinking about stuff in a different way. You're not at your in your house. You're in a different environment. So in person is definitely the channel that I prefer. Is the channel that I'm dedicated to. At Hopin, I was VP of marketing for the in-person business, not for the online. So that's where I come from, and so that's what I dedicate myself to. I want to show you some of the event types that you can think of for an event-led growth framework with some event types and KPIs you can quickly implement depending on the stage where you're at. So obviously these are the very oversimplifying here. Obviously, guys, I mean you can be super detailed with this. I'm sure at all the calls you do every month, there's going to be a ton of details, more detail here. Like, let's look at awareness. My favorite ones are webinars in the awareness. And by the way, use this later on. This is a reference for you. I'm not going to read bullet points here, but webinars for sure. Right now, that's what virtual events went back to be honest. Like, that's what the excitement is all about. I was at SaaStr, and there was an event tech company, very well known, exhibiting there, and their call to action was webinars, right? So there's no 3 days virtual events anymore. Like what we're doing here, like an hour, super fun, super cool, 3 people discussing, quick conversation. So there's a ton of things that you can do, right? If we continue to move on and we go to the consideration stage, I feel workshops, whatever it ends on, like right now, with your product, there's some more data on GTM. They said whenever you bring your user on a user conference, you get them to play with the product, like the impact on that on the pipeline is massive. Like the usage of the product goes up, the engagement goes up, like the real consideration for your product goes up. So workshops, horizontal, get the people together, forget about getting whatever, top speaker that we've seen a ton of times. We don't have time for that anymore. All the content is available online. We don't need to see content again in a shorter, messy format in person. So you have to think, how am I going to use Mark and Nick if I have them available at inbound, right? What am I going to do with that? And am I just going to get Mark to do a presentation on people-led growth? I mean, no, because like he's talked about that in a ton of podcasts before. I can download a 3-hour deep dive on that. I don't need that. But if we have a 3-way conversation on it, an Ask Me Anything session, a workshop, collaborative workshop on the topic, a human-led approach to marketing all of a sudden becomes something meaningful to you. So, that's when things start to change. And so horizontal consideration in that. I'm going to move to the next stage unless you want to break up. Exclusive VIP events. By the way, I've got examples for you at each of this stage of like how big tech companies or non-tech companies are doing this. So I want to show you those at the end of this presentation as well. Like exclusive VIP events, like that's the name of the game of ABM right now. Like if you're doing ABM marketing, honestly, like that's what it revolves around. Now, obviously, if we're talking about getting people at a steakhouse in San Francisco during Dreamforce, there's a million people doing the same thing. So you got to be creative with like how you ABM them, right? And how you get them together. So it's going to be an exclusive dinner with Mark and Nick, being close to that. Sorry if I pick you up as an example here, but it's very easy for people to relate to this, right? So get them together and discuss in a easy, relaxed environment. I see a question here. So, read it out to me because I'm focusing on the slides. So feel free to interrupt me there. But I feel these sort of VIP events, that's where the game is at. Sales acceleration events, they feel transactional, but honestly, like if people care about your product, they're not transactional. They want that information and they want it from people. Like I'm literally out of like dealing with customer service online right now for like 5 hours this morning. I want to talk to people like right now. And if you do it in person, the impact of that on the decision making is like so important, right? So try to do that. On the retention side, and then I'm going to pause after this, re-engagement events, I don't think a lot of people do these, but whenever you think you're lost, you're churning away, like re-engaging with people by means of events. Oh my God, it's so powerful. It's like a reconnection email of some sorts that you can automate by HubSpot. It's not like come to our event and reconnect with us. We'd love to chat to you and see what you're up to today. Oh my God, I've seen people that hate some event tech companies. All of a sudden, they get invited to a summer party, even if they're not using them, they've become sort of evangelists online the next day and telling you like how they loved everything and like how real platforms do these type of things today. Like you can't believe like the amount of like shifting patterns that I see where what role events play. Because like think about the dynamic. It's not only a one-way dynamic. There's also peers. And so if you combine that room with like enthusiast customers, all of a sudden you have a room that is pulling pressure on your churned users, and like they feel the pressure that they're missing out on a cool product and we probably didn't see it right. So this is like just focusing on the re-engagement, but in general, mixing your prospects with your customers, they're doing the work for you. I mean, like you don't have to do anything, right? You just have to create the space for people to meet, right? So I'm going to pause there.
Yeah, we got two questions. One is both from VJ, but there's one about the data side, and maybe we wait to this because I know you're going to come to it around talent. Like, can companies actually activate the data side of things, or is there just a gap in talent? I have a very strong point of view, so if you want me to go first, Julius, feel free.
Yeah, please do. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to answer that now?
Yes.
You want to take it now?
No, you go first.
Okay, yeah. So my take on this, VJ and everyone else, is event marketers. I'm thinking this from like a more traditional B2B business standpoint, aren't usually that well trained or that have that much experience and skill sets when it comes to taking the data that their events create and enabling and activating that data across different go-to-market teams within a business. So my number one recommendation is you got to find someone either in sales operations or revenue operations, or if your business is kind of smaller, someone who understands just how systems are set up at your company to say, look, we're doing this event and the objective goes back to the why. The why we're doing this event is we're trying to do X, Y, Z. How can we help and work together? How can you help me? And how can we work together to activate that data in these different ways? And the questions I asked there is, does the data have to be real time? Does the data have to be sent to people and then followed up on? Is there stuff from a data standpoint that's pre and post that needs to be like extrapolated out? But to me, if you want to take this up a notch from just like from one event to a strategic level, you then have to ask yourself, hey, marketing sales leader, we believe that we're missing an opportunity to enrich the account information and the contact information from event data. If we made that a first-class citizen in how we think about our data strategy at a company, then let's start at that level, right? You might have to start more at the event level to prove out that this data is valuable. But if you really want to operationalize this and make it a first-class citizen, you have to try to figure out a way to manage up and influence someone in that executive leadership team to say, look at all this first-party intent data and maybe some second-party and third-party intent data that we can get that will help us find better signals of purchase intent, customer retention intent, advocacy intent, all these different types of signals that we could use to inform how we actually create and retain revenue.
Absolutely. Such a great point, Mark, to be honest, like such a great vision here. Let me add a couple of points here to think about. Things are changing as well, right? So you don't get into events because you love data, Mark, let's be honest, and Nick. Like you get into events because you love people, like you like the action, you like all of, whatever's going on at events, that's what gets you into events. And so there's a disconnect in terms of the traditional event people, right? People that work at event companies, like, venue side, traditional events industry, But there's a new wave of people first coming in, which is like the blended event marketers, right? That come with a strong marketing background, like very data focused online with online experience, especially new generations of like, head of events in marketing teams. I'm super pumped about them, like their knowledge of the data frameworks. They know exactly what to look for. So, that's a generational shift, not age driven by all means. I think it's like knowledge driven in most cases. Then there's the second element here. So first off, the biggest loser here has been event tech for many, many years. Like honestly, like even the platforms that say they do a great job at like, looking at the marketing, don't get me started on that. I mean, I wasted probably $3,000 of a client's budget to find UTM parameters, sources in a screen, right? On a major platform. 4 hours of time to dig into the platform to find like referral sources for ticket sales. Come on, like, this is the basics, so don't get me started on that. I mean, I'm kind of like, event tech has been failing, but that's changing. That's good news. Because why? Because of co-pilots and AI. I feel like that's going to be a game changer if you're in events and like you've never been able to grasp what to do with data. The ability to even like download a framework that you found on LinkedIn, like, the questions that you need to ask yourself and like ask them to ChatGPT or like to your co-pilot within the event tech platform, downloading all the Excel spreadsheets, right? Upload them to a platform that tells you insights about these data. I mean, this is like what companies do in the events industry. There are specific companies that are analytics companies for the events industry. This is what they do. You give them the raw data, they come back with a presentation with the insights. That's going to be available for you very, very soon, if not right now, right? So you can already do that in terms of like, say, for example, thinking how, okay, target all the users in the Bay Area that attended my previous virtual events and were at 85% or more engagement levels, and create an email sequence to invite them to my in-person gathering, and monitor that, and then do follow-ups and like mark them in the CRM. Like this is a basic sort of I'm riffing with you here type of implementation that you can do. You can think of like expanding that. Think about all the people that submitted a feedback form from an event with like score of 90 or plus, and activate them to attend this other event. There's going to be one of the types of events that we did to actually get to convince people not to churn. So like you see how you can immediately cross-reference data points, and you have a ton of data here available to cross-reference. And this is like so great. Like this is like literally the holy grail of data. If you're a data person, like, events are going to be your, I'm literally working on a project where they came to us at Bullpush just to create a data framework for their next events. And like, what do they need to measure? And like, how do they need to act after that? But let's get it practical for you guys. These are my 7 Ps that I want you to look at, right? Planning an event. Okay, good. Do anybody can plan an event? No. Okay. So think about that. Like, not anybody can be an event planner. Okay. So be always conscious of that. But from a strategic perspective, you got to be aware of what goes on in an event, right? You need to always hire someone practical, logistics, there's safety of people involved. So you got to take care of that, right? When we're dealing with humans, like, there's all that things that you got to take care of, right? So think about that. But said that, we got to talk about the 7 Ps, right? And it's the place, the people, the public, the promotion, the performers, what did I miss? I'm sorry. The purpose, obviously, the objective. Sorry, it's behind my camera. I couldn't see it. So, I feel that, these tips are going to be helpful for you as a follow-up. You double click on these, like you implement 10% of this, your event is going to be 100% better already. It's like most events don't think about this.
I know. I love this. And maybe you have it in a different one. I just have to read it a little bit more careful, but like the purpose to me, one thing that you could add to this is, what is the reason why someone would sign up, show up, engage, and then ultimately recommend the event? There's always those 2 whys. There's the why for the business, the objective for the business, right? What are you trying to do? How do you quantify the objective? But then what's the purpose for attendees and the people who get to experience it together?
Oh my God. Like, you know, and that's not an easy question. Why? Because events are exploding right now. That's a great thing. Like there's a ton of events happening, but that means also competition. So if you know, if your event is not showing up for the right reasons, like, you know, don't assume that people are going to show up, especially if your event is free. And like in marketing, you tend to do a lot of free events because you want to get people through the door and good leads. I mean, the no-show rates are insane. We're triple booking sometime, like, you know, we're tripling the capacity, you know, for the actual show up rates. We're thinking like 1 out of 3 is going to show up. So that you got to keep that in mind. It's like, it's beautiful. The world of events is amazing, but it's brutal as well. Like the type of feedback that you get when your event is not well thought. And what does it mean well thought? It means like it's speaking to me, right? It's speaking to me for my top reasons. I want to take you through the reasons why. Okay. I have 5 slides on the reasons why we attend and what you should do about that.
Julius, let me give you one more P though that you might want to add. Partners.
I love that. That's going to be the 8 Ps. So true. Oh my God. What a miss. Oh, I feel so bad. A little bit of depression right now. It's like I thought about this.
Like it, right? Because you can't.
It used to be the 5 Ps and then became the 7. Like this has been going for like 6 years, but now this is not something I started last week. So I feel so depressed right now. Thank you, Mark.
That's all good.
No, that's true. Partners, so key. Partners means like other companies that are non-competitive that you can integrate and partner with to do your events at. Like think about Dreamforce, get people together, do a satellite event at Dream. Honestly, I see some people, I was talking to this very high profile investment bankers group, and they were like, yeah, I mean, we don't go to Dreamforce, but we do plan our events around it, or we do attend our events around it. Like, you know, so people are not going to the 15,000 conference anymore because probably it's too confusing, too much, especially high profile decision makers. But like if you combine your energy with someone else and you create a satellite event, oh my God, people are desperate for that because events, usually big events, they do a very poor job in sort of curating the experience for someone. I mean, try to attend South by Southwest. It's a nightmare, right? It's like 6 hotels, 1 million events, 10,000 sessions. Like, what are you going to do? It's like too much to even fathom that. Okay, so I'm going to move on to my event registration levers. This is hot off the press, very fresh for you. If you caught my newsletter subscription today, like my email, I also gave the KPI you can think of for every registration lever. And this is like specifically for you to boost your registration, right? So your question, right? The purpose, like how do we get people to come to the event? First off, belonging. We want to belong to someone. To something. There's a need of community connection, inclusion, acceptance. We want to be heard. There's a whole movement about events, about neurodivergent way of learning. There's inclusion, DEI. You can feel recognized when you feel like you're connecting with your community. You want to feel identified. And so how do you do that? Like in your messaging, you prioritize all of those opportunities. Like if you know people just care about the community, you're not promoting a keynote speaker. Nobody cares about that. You know what I mean? So that means you're above the fold on your website has to be about the community, the people that you're going to meet, the appointments that you're going to make. So you got to make it tangible for me. Like, what am I going to get? Because like, that's my primary objective, my primary need to come to your event. So you got to be in tune with your audience, right? And I'm going to make an example of a client we work with very quickly on the next lever. So individual, this is going on like so much right now. Like I'm attending for my own purpose, like for myself. I want to gain something out of this. I want to self-promote myself. I want to get a bit better status. I want to meet people. Like I want to create FOMO in other people watching this. Like it's only for me. Right. So you create like strong social media. You gotta create like what's in it for me. Right. You gotta show me how I'm gonna feel part of something exclusive, for example, right? Where nobody else can be part of. I know you've done sort of exclusive, creative driven Nick type of events where it's like kind of very secluded, only for myself, for my betterment. And so this is more the personal one. We cannot deny this. We cannot say that all the people, like they're just there to be connected and be part of, like some people don't care. They just want to self-promote themselves and that's it. That's what they want to do, right? Emotion, very important one. So this is an important one that happened for my client. So we're talking about TACK audiences here, user conference for big client. And they were like tracking low on registrations. I go on their website, I see all these tech conferences. Honestly, if you look at the competition, everybody's marketing experiences, everybody's marketing like, the destination, where you're going, like the activities you can do. And they were like so heavy on the content, they couldn't care less. So obviously the audience was like, I do not need more content. I have all the content that I need online, especially for tech people, right? Very online friendly. They're not going to come to your event to listen to someone. They already listen to everyone. So, make it about Vegas, make it about San Francisco. Well, San Francisco is a little bit challenging right now as a destination, I would say. Make it about Miami. Make it about pick a destination where people are going to be excited to go to, right? Do it in a Bermuda. Do it somewhere that's cool. Market the activities, the experiences that you're going to do more than the content, right? If you think about the transaction, then you have people that just want to better deals. They want to close business. They have to justify the expenses to the boss, right? So you got to work on stuff like, let me buy packets of meetings. Oh my God. Like Anil Agarwal, he built Shop Talk on the basis of that. The ability to book meetings with buyers, right? IMAX, this show we're going to, they have 4,000 hosted buyers, meaning if you show up to IMAX, there's going to be 4,000 people that are there just to buy, right? So the transactional impact of that, so important, more important than anything else that you can think of. I'm not going to care about the community and all of that. No, I'm there to close business. And we need that way more, right? Final one, education. In some sectors, you can give credits, whatever it is, like continuing education credits. This is very important for some people to actually come to your event. Certification, training, that's a big motivator, especially if you have like a hefty price, $1,500 to attend your user conference. You got to give me some training on your platform, for example, right? So that's a good one. So yeah, now I'm gonna pause there. I have some examples for you, and well, I don't know if you have any questions or comments about this.
Well, we have another
I'm
question.
curious how.
Oh, go ahead, Kyle. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask. So I think all 5 of these are obviously great value props for different cohorts of the population that visit the event. How are you working with clients to perhaps gain an understanding up front in the discovery phase of maybe what that breakout of those cohorts are and how to prioritize that kind of the messaging accordingly on, say, the event landing page?
Yeah. So there's so much information only when there's an online environment that supports the event. So if you're not committed to online content, I believe that you're digging yourself a grave for in-person events. Honestly, every single client that I work with, specifically big events like trade shows and exhibitions, I'm telling you, I tell them, you're in the media business. You got to move into online content. You got to post 10 times a day on social media. Why? Because you're testing your message all the time. You're getting feedback about what's resonating with your audience again and again. And so that decision in terms of what's going to resonate more becomes so obvious because you have a constant online community to deal with and to check with and to kind of get the feedback of, right? Sometimes in platforms you have that. Some platforms have a 365-day type of engagement where you do all your webinars every time and you have the different data of those webinars and the people can connect them and network with each other. So you can have it in a closed environment like that. You can have it in an open environment, such as social, right? So start jotting down ideas. We're thinking about 3 destinations. Is it going to be Vegas, Nashville, or Miami? Both. All of a sudden you got you're engaging the audience. You're getting, you got to be open, of course, to do something like that. You're not open, to something like that, you're not going to get traction in this day and age. It's not going to happen for you. You're not going to have data points of your online content. It's not going to happen for you. I'm sorry. The contextual importance of that, especially for your content. If you think about your content, Kyle, how do you select your content for your event? Usually the process is who should we invite? Who's cool right now? Who's trending? I mean, how's that reflecting the needs of your audience, right? While on the other hand, if you have like a constant content program, social media program, you know exactly what type of content is resonating with your audience. You're going to find a better speaker for that. Or, you know, company employees that can deliver on that type of content. You don't need to hire speakers sometimes. You just need to put people in a room, right? So I feel the more contextual you are about your online effort, the more you have in terms of data to act upon. I don't know if that answers your question. Then there's like a case by case scenario. What didn't work at your previous events? I look at that as well, right? What happened at your previous events? What was resonating? What's your competition doing? You always have to keep an eye, right? I always tell, like, you know, one of the tips that I shared in my newsletter today is like, head to your competitor website, download the schedule, upload to ChatGPT, give me insights about their content program right now. I mean, you immediately have like a panoramic view of like what they're doing and like what's resonating with that specific vertical. So very, very important, right? One thing I want to mention to you guys, I counted one event hour, what we're doing right now, on average, 121 insights, okay, we generate. If you think about it, like if it's really well curated, like we're doing here, like I'm adding, Mark is adding, Kyle is asking, like we're engaging and creating so many insights, so many more than a presentation. So the biggest missed opportunity of events today is like content, is what you do with the content. If you think about events, it's probably one of the most unsustainable, you know, industries out there. We create a lot of waste, a lot of travel, you know, a lot of like, you know, we have to deal with that. Sustainability is a big issue, but the biggest waste by all means, it's content. You know, the amount of content we generate and then it goes to waste and it's just left somewhere. It's incredible. So this is my event-led engine. I feel like you could record whatever you think about, like the next thing you're going to do, whatever it is, record the hell out of it. Do like, you know, if you don't do the recording, you're setting yourself up for failure. So if there's one thing you're going to remember from this presentation is that you got to record. Like if you have AV in place for your in-person event, you're already set up for recording, right? Like they have audio jacks, like you don't need video. Like if you have video, great. But even audio by itself, it's enough. You can transcript that, make it become like, obviously the recording becomes short video, long video form, you know, replays, live webinar replays, you know, which is a thing right now where you're mimicking a live webinar that it's not a live webinar. So there's YouTube shorts, TikTok, transcript, blog posts, LinkedIn posts, and this is done automatically by some platforms, by the way. Like, you know, there's platforms like Gloss, GLOSS.ai, where you just upload the video, you get already like chunked out in like 4 different like short videos with subtitles and all different formats, transcript for LinkedIn, audio, podcast, visual. You can do visuals with the content, graphics. You can do so much with it. So do not waste that content. Okay. I'm going to close with KPIs and examples. Do you have any questions so far? How are we doing?
There was just one more from VJ, about how do tech companies get so good at building these bigger events? I mean, he calls out Dreamforce, Inbound, and then there's the other industries that aren't good at it, especially in Asia, he mentions. Thoughts of these more big flagship events, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's first off, they haven't been built in a day. It took decades to do that. Even a SaaSter, if you think about it, it's 10 years, to get to 12,000 people. So this is not an easy sort of day. Obviously, if you have momentum is very important, right? Sometimes you trying to find case studies in companies that have an extreme momentum. You cannot do that. Like Figma, everybody loves Figma. Everybody's using Figma. Obviously, you have 20,000 people that want to attend online and Moscone Center at capacity because people cannot be contained. You know what I mean? There's so much energy and momentum in that. How are you going to recreate that? Well, I mean, this is it's a $1 trillion question to create that momentum, because it's a combination of product that is amazing, community that is well nurtured. So it's such a combination of elements that it's almost impossible, to be honest, to concentrate on KPIs like that. It's the idea is that you gotta be able to stay in for the long term. You got to be able to build something that makes sense at that moment in time for your audience and build on top of it with the feedback that you get from them, right? Because if you think about SaaStr, it started as a meetup for like 500 people, right? Informally. Then you got to be able to build a business on top of it, or like a movement on top of it that makes sense, right? So let's talk about the KPIs and the data for that. Look at these items. I left them here for you to double click and go back later. Like, these are the things that we're looking at, right? And this is like the what it provides. Ticket type registration, social media content generated, that's the awareness, overall registration, ticket sales. The consideration part, like, we're getting deeper. So you're looking at the content viewed, the session registration, if you showed up for a session or not, the comments in a session, the chat interaction. That means more engagement, right? You could like literally have an engagement pyramid here, and it would, exactly be the same, right? The more engaged you are, the more you move down the funnel, the more the metrics become more intimate, right? Number of connections made, if you show or no show, how many meetings you booked, like now I'm considering, right? Did I repeat consideration in the 2 slides? No, I didn't. Yes, I did. Sorry about that. I think I repeated. Oh no, this is continued by the one before. The decision I wanted to make through that. SQLs, pipeline, foot traffic, booth visits, right? We're talking about closing business here. And then retention, NPS, session rating, right? All of these beautiful, post-acquisition type of metrics, right? Use this as a framework. Obviously, there's way more than this, but this is like enough. This is good enough. Like, if you pull like 10% of this, your event is going to be 1,000 times better, I would say. So think about these. Let me show you some case studies and example. Awareness, right? The Dreamforce, the Adobe Summit, the Google I/O. These are programs that are like just done for the beauty of it. Like these are like a pure awareness marketing implementation, right? It's like such a big event that you're not looking at ROI anymore to a certain extent. Like, you gotta have it. You need to have it because people expect it. And like, you not having this, like, I would say, if you're thinking as a sponsor of events, it's like not being your flagship event for your industry. I always tell my clients in the events industry, if you're not at IMEX, you do not exist for a lot of clients. So think about that. Like, whatever you think about it, whatever your, ABN theory is, sometimes, almost all the times, you need that awareness. You need to be there. You need to show that you're human and that there's people, that you're not like some dodgy operation with offices offshore that like nobody can relate to. Like, you need to show up. So this is, I had fights with my CEO saying, you got to come to IMEX. Like, you got to show up here and shake hands. If you take Reggie Agarwal, the CEO of Cvent, recently been acquired by $4.6 billion by Blackstone, he shows up at every single IMEX. He's at the booth. He's there, literally the activation of the booth. He's there shaking hands with everybody, taking selfies, taking pictures. He's been doing it for 12 years. Like, it's crazy. So he understands very well how important it is to show up for awareness, right? So consideration, like, the Garden Symposium, like, how you do, like, they're doing AMAs on Teams for Microsoft. Like, this becomes like a little bit deeper, a little bit smaller. So you see, we're moving into more engagement type, is like more of a symposium workshop type of experience. The decision, oh my God, you look at the right-hand side, Gong. This is my ex, this is Brianna Hug, my ex-colleague at Hopin, previously at Eventbrite. She's the field marketer for Gong. She does these amazing dinners, with the speaker and like the best of the best curated audience that you can think of. Like, these are true networking and learning opportunities, like, so great. I invite you to follow Brianna at Gong and like see all the events she does. She's such a master at that. Retention, you see how you could do here, like, what is it, this one I can see, Tableau. Oh my God, sorry about that. Tableau is doing like re-engagement events with their customer base, like, their user groups, they come together, to give feedback about the platform, checking the satisfaction about it. So it's not always about prospects and generating new leads, right? That's it for me, my friends. Thank you so much for your help and being with me today. I enjoyed this so much. Let me put this in a better screen to Julius at boldpush.com. And yeah, if you have any more questions.
I have a question. What do you think is going to be the piece of hardware that's going to be most consequential to events in the next 5 years?
Hardware.
Yeah, hardware, physical, something physical.
Yeah, I don't know. I got you. Two things. I'm excited about technology like Click from Visible, which is like, essentially a bracelet where you swipe and you exchange information and then you download everything after that. I think like what iOS 15 do download it, because like there's the business card exchange by just NFC swiping of two phones. You exchange information. So key, right? Floor analytics, hear me out, right? Exhibitions. So you have tiles that measure how many people pass by, super excited about that by just the pressure on the tiles that you put on the flooring. And so you know how many people pass by. It is an awareness type of thing, exposure, but like, we still have impressions. They may count something, right? So that exists. And also I would say, look at what Zenus is doing with their analytics, and that's AI, sort of what they call facial analysis. And so they point a camera at you during an event, and they're able to do analytics based on your facial expressions that gives feedback about the content that is being proposed, right? So you have like very deep engagement type of things. Like that's kind of a middleware type of solution. It's not purely hardware, but it's like camera pointed for sure.
That's amazing. One more question. I'll have Nick and you wrap it up. I'm going to, kind of lead the witness with this one. What about spatial computing?
Oh my God, what about it? And how do you mean? Like in what sense?
Well, Apple created the category.
Right.
Yeah, maybe they didn't, but I'm pretty sure they did.
Yes.
And that's everything wrapped up in VR, AR.
So you see as it impacting events. Well, listen, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because like, whatever has been done with Oculus, hasn't worked so far. So people like, that type of experience with a big visor on your head, like we cannot deny this. We all know it on the back of our heads that as long as, even if it's Apple doing it, which means a lot, because whenever Apple is doing something, that could be a game changer. December 2023, that's going to be when we find out, like with this mixed reality, that could be potentially the game changer for the events industry. Or listen up, for the people that misinterpret what events are about. Because like, if you think that events are about a checklist or logistics of throwing a venue together, they're not about that. They're about connecting people, regardless the medium, regardless, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, whether it's mixed reality. And therefore, like those are very good at connecting people. They're gonna be having an edge, whatever the tool. And like there's gonna be new sets of events, bring it on. Like, we're just gonna apply our, best practices to that type of environment. So we'll see. The adoption is going to be important.
Thank you, Julius.
Yeah, incredible. Thank you so much, Julius. This was fantastic. We'll make sure to share the recording with everyone. If you have any questions, Julius's email, as you can see on the screen, julius@boldpush.com. Reach out to him. He's very helpful. He's not afraid to talk to you as well. He talks to me quite often, which is very nice of him. So, Julius, thank you again. This was fantastic. I learned a ton. I'm sure everyone listening learned a ton, and hopefully we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.